Today I'm going to share with you why Prime's imperfections are exactly what makes him perfect. This replica of Optimus Prime is always driven. He's never trailered. And as a result of all the driving that I do, he's got some flaws, some imperfections, some things that just make me crazy. And today I thought it would be fun to actually show you many of the flaws and imperfections that, for me, make him perfect. Now, I want to make it clear right up front that in no way do I ever expect Optimus Prime to be perfect. As a matter of fact, I kind of like his imperfections because it's an accurate reflection of how we are as people. You know, on the surface, we always try to portray this perfect lifestyle, right? But on the inside, there's a lot of things going on that typically most people don't know. Today, I'm going to show you the things you don't know about Optimus when it comes to all the things that are broken and yet perfect. Let's get started. I figured we'd start with the visor here. Now, originally this visor was 3 individual pieces that were body filled into one. But what people don't realize is that the original bodywork is coming apart. And you can see that when you look really closely at this side. See, originally there was one piece here, a second piece here, and a third over there. When you look close, you're going to see the one piece is starting to come apart. See this right here? There's a line that goes up and then goes all the way across. I know it's hard to see in the chrome there. But that line is one of the original pieces starting to kind of flex out, and the bodywork that was done on it has not held up. We've tried redoing it a couple times, but it still keeps doing the same thing, which means that whatever solution we come up with isn't working. So until we can come up with a different way to secure it, that unfortunately is the way it's going to be. All right, our next one here is on the rear fender. This panel right here was actually originally held on by 4 brackets. There was a bracket here, and then 2 more on the other side that held it to these rear fenders. Over time, actually it didn't take too much time, the vibrating of the fenders shook this piece apart. The brackets ended up breaking on 3 sides, and I caught it in time before the 4th one popped off. What's left is the remnants of those vibrations. So you're going to see right here, there's a little imperfection there. There's one, let's see if I can find it, yep, right there. This is not the vinyl wrap coming up. This is actually the imperfection of the bodywork from the original piece below, from where the brackets were originally welded. One of those things that, again, I just never bothered fixing. It's just going to stay that way for now. But the brackets themselves, you'll be happy to know, have been significantly beefed up, so no longer should I have those types of issues. This rear panel right here was actually added to the truck, and you can see got a nice little crack line happening right there, and it just seems to be getting worse over time. I'll eventually have to replace that. So if you've been following me for a while, you know that these rear fenders actually have lights inside of them. Those lights are still there, but the vibrations of the fender always shook the wiring apart, so I just gave up trying to keep them working. You'll also see that there's cracks that are forming right here on the fiberglass on both ends. There's a crack line right here that kind of goes straight up, which is hard to tell. That's one of those things I really can't do much about because of the vibrations of the fender, because I don't have any weight on the back. It's a nightmare to keep a lot of this stuff together, and these fiberglass components are one of them. Now we come to the running boards. Yay! One of my biggest pet peeves of this entire thing. You'll remember not too long ago I had these pieces made up to actually hide many of the imperfections that were starting to occur. See, these running boards were not very well protected in the beginning, and a lot of the elements, the rust for instance, was just getting to them. I have since protected them very well, but the rust is still doing what it was starting to do years ago. And you can see an example of it right here. You can see how this piece right here is just coming apart with the rust that's occurring. You can see it coming down there, and it was doing the same thing on the running boards there, and you'll see pieces along here. There's one there, there's one there, there's pieces here, and both running boards, see that right there? That's what these pieces are attempting to hide. Now, I'm really happy with how they actually turned out. It does hide those imperfections really well, but underneath it's continuing to do what it was originally doing, and eventually I know I'll have to replace them. For now though, I am pretty happy with how they turned out. Oh, just a little random crack line forming on the hood scoop. And another random crack line forming right across here, again, mainly from the vibrations. Doesn't look too bad from a distance, right? But you get a little closer. Look at that, there's a crack right there that was welded at the end of the crack to try to prevent further cracking. And if you go down a little lower, you're gonna see that there's also a crack right there. I've actually got tape underneath that, trying to hold that one piece on so it doesn't crack itself apart completely. Something I noticed not too long ago on the drive tire. See this right here? Yeah, that's not supposed to be happening. That means there's something wrong with something. The treads themselves are still pretty okay, but the alignment is off and it's causing this uneven wear on the driver's side tire only. Let's talk about the front bumper panels. This is something I've actually never shared with anyone. Now, many of you know that these panels open up when I do my demonstrations. There's an actuator behind here which is bolted on right there that pushes the panels open. And when I'm not using the panels or doing the demonstrations, they are zip tied shut on top and bottom. I was at a school one day and I originally did not have these bolts holding it on. It was just glued from the inside. Well, I was at a school and it was a very, very hot day. And the glue on the inside of both panels had actually failed from the heat of the sun. So unbeknownst to me, I drove from the school to a nearby parking lot to button everything up, and the panel had flung open on both sides. This panel came all the way out here, and it was actually rubbing up along the wheel, which ended up putting a major gash right here on this one as well as the other one. Now, from a distance, it looks pretty good. My issue with these panels is that the person who promised me she'd be able to restore them did not live up to the hype that she had first promised. You'll see here that Kyle was not affected. His face and everything is exactly how it was, which is the most important part to me. Originally, though, there was a picture of Kyle right here and some more stuff down here. She had promised me that she'd be able to repeat and kind of duplicate what it originally had, but as you can see, it's not there. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the artistry that she had done here, it's very different from the original artist, who unfortunately has passed away since he's done these. So the same issue is on the other side, where the panel, as I was driving, had opened up and flared open and was running up along the wheel only for about a mile. I didn't realize this was the case until I pulled into the parking lot. So there was a gash right here on the panel as well. And as you look at the artwork here, you can see that she repaired this person right here, but you compare the two and you're going to see a noticeable difference between the quality of the work. And it's kind of how it is throughout this entire section here. So I'm not going to complain about it. It is one of those imperfections that to me makes Prime perfect, and the murals themselves are still intact. There may come a point in time where I have to remove these murals just to preserve them, because the gentleman who did them was especially connected with Kyle over there, and he has since passed away, Mike LaBelle. So maybe one day I'll do that, but for the time being, I have secured the actuators here with the bolts now, and there's also chains on the inside of the panel, so even if these zip ties on the top and bottom fail as I'm driving, the chains on the inside and these bolts should hold it where it's at, so that what happened one day will never ever happen again. I pointed that out not too long ago. You'll see that bracket on the stacks there is rubbing up against the cab itself. So I try to hide that imperfection there with the tape. Most people don't really notice it unless you're up close. The tape is starting to come off, so I'll have to redo that once it gets warmer again. The fuel tanks are getting a bit of a haze on them. You'll see what kind of looks like cloudiness there. That's not actual dirt. It's like cloudiness in the tank itself. Most likely what will have to happen is these have to be completely resanded and repolished, because any polishing I do makes it look nice and shiny, but the cloudiness still remains in many of the places here. Not really sure what I'm going to do about that, because I ain't removing this anytime soon. Mud flaps here. You know how in pictures I have these pieces added? That's because the mud flap was tearing as I was driving. It was actually tearing along this. These hangers are new. It was tearing along the bottom of this. So there was a rip on both sides of the mud flap from the wind driving that extended to about here. So I decided to add these pieces on, which not only hide that little imperfection, but keep the mud flap intact. Fun fact, you remember not too long ago last year during the summer, I said I was hit by somebody while parked? Well, that is where they hit me. There was a tractor trailer that was behind me, that was parallel parking behind me, and his front bumper guard caught this, and it started pulling this back, and then it flung it back this way. So when it shook me up in the middle of the night, I realized that that's what they had dragged and pulled. Thank goodness he wasn't 2 inches closer, because then that would have caused some serious damage to the fender here. The catwalk starting to come apart there. Look at that. the chrome on these particular pieces is in really bad shape, partially because I'm always walking on it whenever I'm cleaning this area up here. But the chrome itself has really taken a beating, and that's one of the most obvious examples. When you get up close, you'll see that it's happening pretty much everywhere. Huh. Just noticed that. I guess I'll have to redo that when it gets a little warmer. You ever notice how that piece looks like a different color blue than this piece? Yeah, that's because it is. The folks who originally did the bodywork on this swore up and down that they found the right color match for the base truck here, but turns out it wasn't. Now, depending on how the light hits that piece, it blends in pretty well, but right now with the lighting, the way it's hitting it, you'll see it's a much darker shade. And that's one of those things that's been that way since pretty much day one when the original build was complete. One day maybe I'll repaint it, but it's such a big piece and it's really difficult to remove, if not impossible at this point with the stacks. So I really don't know how I'm going to tackle that. And some more running board damage. I'll eventually have to make some pieces to cover up the imperfections on this piece and the one on the passenger side. Zoom in real close up there. You'll see the bracket for the stacks is actually hitting up against the cab there. Every once in a while I'll repaint that so it's more hidden. I'll probably have to do that again soon. This is a fun little gem right here. So these fenders right here were originally a lot lower and the airbags didn't have stops on them anymore. So what happened was, as I was driving, there was a bracket right here holding the fender on that started rubbing up on the tire. And you can see that there's actually chunks missing from the corner of the tire all the way around. And that was happening because the wheel was actually rubbing up against the bracket inside here. Fortunately, that's one of the things I caught very quickly early on when we first started, or rather finished the build. So we've adjusted the height of the fenders and the airbags and all that. So I no longer have that issue of the tires rubbing. And the treads themselves are perfectly fine. There's no need to replace the tires. Besides, I don't want that expense right now. Come down to the rear wheels. And look at that. That's pretty much happening on all of the wheels, mainly from the heat of the rotations, I presume. Prime's hood scoop. Nice little crack forming right there. Another crack up there. Another one there. Works its way across. Yeah, that hood scoop has been a nightmare from day one. I've had some repairs that were done to it a while ago. You can see that it's starting to come apart on me again, but yet again, not much I can do about it. Ain't no way I'm going to be able to repaint that whole thing right now. Hey, you're getting really close to that light there. You'll see some damage to the light itself because it's rubbing up on here. As I drive Optimus, this cab is always flexing. Ain't no way I'm going to make it rigid. It's got to flex in order to have some level of comfort, but it's damaging the lights and the stacks at the same time. So what do you think? Was it more than you thought? Less than you thought? In reality, it's not so bad. When you consider the amount of driving that I do and how much mileage I do put on Optimus Prime and the fact that he is a big truck and big trucks are just susceptible to this stuff, it's not too bad. Just little flaws and imperfections that get to me sometimes. But again, like I said in the beginning of this video, the idea is to help everyone realize that, hey, Prime's not perfect. None of us are perfect. So I kind of think it's a really accurate representation of how we are in real life. And that's why I love the imperfections on Prime, because to me, he's absolutely perfect. Thanks for watching, everybody.